this is something that I'm really interested in and I'm excited to talk with you about. So what we're going to talk about today is connections and how we help our kids learn to form real close connections with each other and with us, which it starts at home. Some things that we've learned at camp and how we train our counselors to really connect with kids and help them connect with each other in just really a couple weeks. What we do up there that you can kind of try to use at home. And then finally, we're going to spend some time talking about all those screens, and not this internet safety that you talked about before, but as a parent, how to manage them and help our kids learn to use these screens in a way that's going to be helpful and productive in their lives. Okay, so if you came to my talk last year, you know that I've been somewhat obsessed with kind of social skills, friendship skills, how we help our kids learn to connect better with other people in a time when a lot of us, even adults, are very much spending more time connecting virtually than with real life people. So the specific skills we talked about last year, I'm not going to talk about those today, but you can definitely, there's actually an ebook that I've created on the 10 friendship skills that you can get on my website if you're interested in that. So I'm not going to talk about the specific things, but I will tell you that a lot of the training that we do with our counselors is teaching them how to connect with campers and form what we call real relationships. We can't really use the word friends as much anymore, because that word got usurped by Facebook in about 2006 or 7, when they started calling someone who we don't even know on Facebook our friend. In the time since then, so it's only been, can you believe that? It's only been about 10 years since Facebook came on the scene. I looked it up because I couldn't remember when it was, but smartphones, I got my first smartphone 10 years ago. So my older kids they were flip phone people. You know, around age 14, they got their flip phone so that they could call after sports practice and that kind of thing. So it's been only in the last 10 years that we're dealing with this whole new way of our kids connecting with each other, and even ourselves, and how we connect with our friends, more texting and all that stuff. So at camp, we practice a lot of things, and we really focus on helping them learn why it is so important. In fact, this is more important than anything else we do, and I will contend that, just like I did last year, that as parents, teaching our kids to connect and have good, positive relationships is much more important than anything else. That, you know, whatever, I think I talked about the reading group that they're in 2nd grade, I will tell you for sure makes no difference in their whole life. But if they have a good friend who they can talk to, and if they have a friend who's sad and they know what to say to help that friend feel better, those are the things that are going to make them outstanding adults, people who contribute positively to our world. So how many of you are familiar with the Harvard study, the 75-year, it's actually almost close to 80 years now. So there's, so basically they followed this group of Harvard graduates, they were like in the 1930s, all the way through their life, to try to see if there were any things that were most predictive of like happiness and good health and all these things. And so of course, after $75 million, I think it was, and a huge study, they came down to 2 main findings, one of which is the quality of your relationships is the most important predictor of lifelong happiness and health. And in fact, your connections with other people at age 50 predict your health at age 75 more than your cholesterol level or any of the other things that we've all been told are so important. So this connection thing is really important. The other finding was that if alcohol is not the root of all evils, it is close, because so many people's lives were impacted negatively by that. But I'm not going to go into that part here. That's for a whole other talk. That's not my specialty area. But relationships are the key to our lifelong happiness for ourselves and for our children. And so I'm really excited today that we're going to talk about this. So I'm going to share just a little bit of bad news, and then we're going to talk about all the good news and how we're going to help our kids not fall into this. But the bad news is that right now we're in what people are calling an epidemic of loneliness. It is the cause of what people think a lot of our problems and health problems that people have right now is loneliness. Which is really sad. There's a saying, they talk about being alone together. You can look at a family, it's all sitting on the couch together, all in our own worlds on our phones. So we're together, we might be with other people, but we're alone. And the number of real friends that people say they have has gone down from an average of 3 20 years ago to an average of 2 now. And when they call a real friend, like someone who's a real friend, it's someone that you feel like you could call if you really are hurting, need some help, can really be vulnerable with and disclose what's really going on in your life. So, many people have a lot of friends, like acquaintances, friends, people you're gonna meet for coffee. But when you think about who are you gonna call when you are really needing some support, and so that average number of friends has gone down, with a lot of people saying 0 as their number of friends. So this is an epidemic that is causing health problems and for sure mental health issues too, that we don't want our kids to be in that. We also have an issue with screen addiction, and some people are more apt to do it. I know that I have the tendency to get addicted to things. Like I really, I get caught up in things and I want to scroll, and so as an adult, I even have trouble sometimes, like putting aside my device or stopping scrolling through Facebook or whatever it is. And I think about that like, oh my gosh, I'm 50 and I can't do this. How are we expecting a 13 or 14-year-old to figure this out for themselves when we're having struggles ourselves? So the screen addiction thing is also real, more so for some kids than others. And that's part of what we need to talk about today, because a lot of it is what about your kid and what's going on with them. It may be very different from somebody else's. Okay, so the good news is I've seen the kids playing here at Pegasus. There's a lot of great connecting going on. Our kids are not all on their screens and only doing that. Many of our kids are not lonely and have really good friends and are doing great. So the good news is that there is still a lot of connecting happening, and we can encourage our kids on more of that. And we can start at home by doing some cool things that help our kids learn at home how to connect better with each other and with us. We need to acknowledge our kids' feelings, even if they're completely nonsensical. Because when we discount our kids' feelings, we're basically saying, we're not with you. So just like if a friend came to you and said, I am just so, I'm really anxious about my job and this, that, and the other, you wouldn't say, there's nothing to be anxious about. No, you're not. That's silly, yeah. So our kids, we tend to, when they say something like, I'm really scared, it's too dark in my room and I'm really scared, you're just like, oh, no, there's nothing in your room, let's, flip on the light, it's fine, whatever. Instead acknowledging that feeling, wow, you seem really scared. You're just saying, I'm with you. You might not be making sense, but I'm with you. I see that this is what you're feeling. So now let's talk about screens. This is my husband and my 2 sons on a recent trip, waiting for our brunch. And this is what everybody was doing. And so we have a lot of screen things, and I have traditionally been a super negative screen person. I'm really anti-screens. And so because I just feel like they're bad. That's has been my thing, and I've written all these things about being unplugged, and I do honestly know that being unplugged is so good for us, and having these times, like whoever forgot their phone today is unplugged, somebody just here, yes, good job. Even if you accidentally become unplugged because you run out of battery, it is a good thing. If you go for a walk with a friend and you leave your phone in your car, all good. So I do still love being unplugged. However, I read this book that I'm going to highly recommend. It's a pretty short read. It really has changed my perspective. I only read it like 2 weeks ago, but it was very eye-opening. So Devorah Heitner, she has a whole website called Raising Digital Natives. It's on your handout. And she has some really great wisdom about kind of engaging with tech with our kids. And she talks about becoming a tech positive parent. So you're not viewing it as just a negative, like you get off your screens, whatever, but you're really helping your kids learn to be digital natives in several different areas. One of which is their relationships. How are they using their technology to enhance their relationships with friends? Their reputation. How are they presenting themselves? And what was the third thing? Relationships? It'll come to me. So this book was really good. She also talks about the difference between what our kids are doing on their screens. So when you think about your kids, if you think about them when they're on their phone and you're like, oh my gosh, they're on that screen again. If instead you think they're connecting with their friends, it changes your perspective a little bit. Our kids are growing up in an age where they are using their screens to connect with friends a lot. Group texts and when are we getting together and what's going on. So sometimes the screen time is actually connection time. we do that with our kids, right? We text each other, we text our friends, when do you want to meet, and what are we doing? And so we use them for connecting too. So thinking about kind of changing your mindset a little bit. Now, a lot of times, like especially with my boys, they're doing a lot of consuming. They're just playing a game, kind of a mindless game on the Xbox or on their phone. That's a different kind of screen use than something that, say, for example, they were editing a video that they've created, or they were creating a game, learning how to program a game. So I think part of this is us teaching our kids and being a little more discerning about what exactly our kids are doing on their screens, because they are going to be on them a lot. They may end up using them a lot for their future jobs, most likely. So learning to be a little more discerning about what is going on when they're on their screens. So the other thing that really struck me about this is that I think this is an area, like many areas of parenting, that people have become very judgmental of other parents. Oh my gosh, that kid has a phone when they're 7 years old, and this one has this, and this family doesn't allow anything. And it's just very, the conversations have not been very open with other parents. Instead, we're all kind of in these little silos going, well, I don't know what exactly I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm not sure what other people are doing, but this feels right in my family, or we just succumb because our kids have told us that everyone else is doing something, so we think that must be what we're supposed to be doing too. So this is one of the things that I think we can all kind of do some self-reflection on. How are we putting away our phones when we're talking to our kids and connecting with our kids? Are we doing those things that are teaching our kids how we want them to be with other people? And I would say a lot of times we're not. In this book, she's interviewed a lot of kids and asked them what they wish the rules would be for their parents with their phones, and that was very eye-opening, because a lot of kids will say the rules that they wish their parents followed regarding screens. And that was kind of eye-opening. We don't really often think about that. But what about asking our own kids, hey, how would you, does it ever bug you? What is something that I could do that would make you feel better about, screens? So that's so wise. Just ask our kids, how do they think we are with our screens? Get their opinion on that, and let them know that we struggle with this too. The other thing that is to think about is that digital skills. So like our kids who are really adept at like doing an Xbox or doing a Snapchat or all these things, that is different from relationship skills that we as parents can teach our kids. So we don't really have to know how to use everything in order to be able to mentor our kids in how they're using it and what's going on with them and their friends. I loved this part that she offered about asking our kids questions, and I used it. So I asked my sons, I said, show me the Instagram feed of someone who you think presents themselves in a really positive, good way. And show me the Instagram feed of someone who you think does not. And it was great because I heard my kids telling me, oh, well, this person does this, they post way too many pictures of themselves, and they do this and they do that. And I'm listening, and I'm saying, okay, they are discerning and thinking about this. So asking those kind of questions, or even as an adult, you can even talk through like, well, I was thinking about posting this, but I decided that it might hurt my friend's feeling who wasn't there. Letting your kid hear your thought process about some things. How many of you, again, this is an honest moment, have ever sent an email that you regretted sending afterwards? All right, so another good example. I've lived in fear. Oh my gosh, my kid is gonna post something or say something that is gonna, first of all, super embarrass me and create some kind of havoc, right? You hear these stories, like we hear all the stories on the news, like, oh my gosh, my kid's gonna do something crazy and get arrested for who knows what, I don't know, for their phone. But we have to recognize that our kids will make mistakes on their phones, just like we have made mistakes with technology and the way we've communicated with other people. And it's not, most likely, unless it's really extreme, it's not gonna ruin their lives, and pretty much employers, when they're 23 years old applying for a job, are really probably not gonna look back at the thing that they posted when they were 12 or whatever, or texted. So that was kind of an eye-opening thing, like, yeah, I think, a misstep. However, we need to mentor our kids on these things. If something goes wrong in a relationship with their friends, we need to help them, like talk through it. Well, what do you think went wrong? How do you think you can repair this relationship? And the most important question, should we take it offline instead of staying in text? So in for me as a business person, and I think if any of you can relate to this, if I get an email that is sort of like a complaint or a problem, I have learned it is way better to pick up the phone, because email or text has no tone. No one can tell how the other person is feeling. It is not the same kind of communication. And so you get to the bottom of whatever the issue is much faster if you just pick up the phone and call. Now, a lot of people think, oh, it's kind of hard to talk to people. I just would rather do it via email. But it ends up being far better. So if you have one of those email stories, share it with your kid. Like if you have an example, let them know, this one time somebody emailed me and I responded, I was angry, or I didn't take a breath before I responded, or I accidentally CC'd the wrong person, or whatever the story is. Letting your kids know that you are a real human who has also struggled with this technology sometimes and made errors, and letting them know that's okay, but you are there for them. And you want to help them through when they have one of these issues. Because like I said before, you are experts at relationship and communication, and they need your help with that. They don't have the same experience that you have, so you can help them. So I think asking questions like, say, how's it going with your friends and all that kind of thing. And then the conversations too about, what they're posting and how might that affect their friends. There's a lot, it's hard being a kid right now and hearing that you're missing something that's going on. And so talking to our kids about that, like, is this a wise time to post this? If you're at a party and all your, some people aren't there, thinking about the things from a human perspective as opposed to like not, is it a great picture to post? It's how is this gonna impact other people? And in general, I would say that, if hindsight is 20/20, I would wait as long as possible, especially with social media and especially with middle school girls. And I know for some of you it's already too late on that, but just in that thing, also just having that conversation with them. How is this making you feel? Maybe we need some breaks. What do you think? That kind of thing. Okay, so some considerations that I just want to talk about. I have a lot of friends on Facebook who are younger parents because they were counselors at my camp, and a lot of them are teachers now and different things. And I have this one gal, she posts the funniest things about her kids. She's a really funny parent, but she really shares a lot. She shared a picture of the text she sent to the 21 parents of the children invited to her 12-year-old daughter's slumber party. And the text said, my husband and I have decided that we do not want any phones or devices at this party. We don't want the kids making videos or taking pictures. It's a swim party, a slumber party. We want them just to be having fun with each other. Just wanted to let you know, we're gonna let the girls know if they need you or they need to call you. I'll have my phone, and of course they can come and talk to me. And I was like, okay, this is just brilliant. I didn't have to deal with this because again, my kids we weren't in that era when they were turning 12 and 13. And I ended up doing a podcast interview with her. And it was just really interesting hearing about, first of all, the reaction of the other parents, which all but one were like, that's awesome, that's so great. I'm really happy. And then one wasn't comfortable with it and didn't want her daughter to come because they had this, thing of wanting to be connected. I just thought it was such a great idea, and I think one of the things that often we're kind of scared to be that parent who says to a kid, you can't use your phone, or let's put the phones away. You kind of don't want to be that mean parent, and you don't want to be the house that nobody wants to come to because it's not as fun because you're not allowed to be on screens. So I think I just wanted to kind of give you that idea that most parents would be supportive of that. So if you said before a play date, hey, you know what, you guys can play Xbox for an hour this afternoon, and then the rest of the time you need to go outside or do something else. Like, you can set very clear guidelines, and the other parents, most of the time, I will say, raise your hand if you would appreciate that, if another parent, when your child's at their house, set some guidelines. Okay, so we all feel this way, and yet, in the moment, often are a little uncomfortable. So one of the things with my kids, my boys, I don't allow screens in their rooms. And so we plug them in at night, an hour before bedtime, so they don't have screens, etc. And so when they have friends sleep over, I make the friends do that too. So I ask 16-year-old boys to leave their phone in my office, which is, I'm kind of lame, but that's okay. I'm just gonna say this is my home and this is the way I do it. And they really don't mind. They don't really care that much. It's fine. So I'm just going to empower you that you can do things like this, and I would encourage you to do it, and the kids will have a lot more fun. Honestly, they'll dig deep, and she told me some stories that there were some moments of lull time where they were deciding between things, and that was all good. They figured it out. So you guys came up with a lot of the other things. I think these are considerations, and you do need to talk with your co-parent partner on this and kind of come up with what are we going to do on this, because it's very important. You guys already came up with a lot of really great things. I think it's important, especially when you have varying ages of kids, to come up with ideas of times that are, boating or playing tennis or whatever it might be, where you're just going to say, you know what, we're doing these things, we're just going to set aside our phones or leave them in the car or whatever. What our kids remember most from their childhood is not necessarily these massive big vacations. It's going to be things like sitting around the dinner table, sharing something, or those hikes that we took every once a month or whatever it is. So those are the things that our kids really remember. And I just love this quote, kids don't remember their best day of television. I think they're not going to remember their best day of Xbox either. I'm going to say that's the same kind of thing. They're going to remember their times with you and their friends and everything else. I just put up a bunch of things on here. We don't have time to brainstorm, but this is another one that you guys can do together is talk. And you already did share some of this of your connecting times when we talked about that before. But there's lots of times that we can connect with our kids that don't require screens. And watching a movie together, which is a screen, is actually pretty fun. So I'm not an opponent to that. I actually think watching things together is a very connecting thing. Better than us all being in our separate rooms watching our own things on Netflix. Might as well watch something together. So all of these things, all this, how to connect with your kids. And I just want to encourage you, mostly what I'd love for you to get out of this is talking to each other and opening up communication on these topics, because again, you all have tried different things. You have people who've had things that didn't work, rules they tried that really failed, things they've given up on trying to enforce with their kids, and sharing with each other will really help you, and talking to other parents, especially when your kids are friends. Because this week, with these other 8th grade boys' moms, was the first time that we've had these conversations about movies and, and what's going on, and the screens, and are they allowed to have them, till what time at night, and all these things. And it was really good because they were like, oh my gosh, my son says the same thing, that I'm the only one. But we know we're not, because both of us do this too. And of course, every teenage kid wants more privileges. So you're never going to give them enough. They're always wanting more. So you just have to figure out what it is that is the guideline. If you want more sunshine, that's my camp name. So that's why my website is called Sunshine Parenting. And that's what everyone calls me at camp, actually. That's my name. So I have a website that Mo told you about. I do send out a weekly email that's either a podcast or a blog post about something usually related to parenting, happiness, or summer camp. So those are my main topics, and a lot of them are all connected because they're all, being friends and all the stuff we do at camp is all the same as for our families. And then, of course, any social media stuff. Like I said, I like being unplugged, but I also really like all the connecting with people and how we can connect with lots of people that we wouldn't be able to connect with before because of these things. And I think trying to embrace that more and be more positive is one of my goals. So thank you so much for coming. I'm happy to answer any questions.